Hello and good evening. It's now 19:05 in London. I'm Nikki Scott.
And I'm Luke Addison. Thanks so much again for joining us for Series 4. I'm sure you'll agree we had an amazing talk with Rotary International's incoming president, Shekhar Mehta, on his plans and challenges for Rotary during his time in office. As always, if you missed our last Together talk with Shekhar, you can catch up on demand along with a total of over 25 events available on the Rotary Great Britain and Ireland YouTube channel. The whole aim of Together Talks is to provide a resource library for anyone to use at any time for a virtual meeting to invite Rotarians and guests into discussion and to inspire action.
So as a great follow-on from our conversation with Shekhar about empowering girls, tonight we're delighted to be able to introduce you to a remarkable woman of action, Stephanie Woolard, who is here to tell us about an organization she set up in 2006. It's a story of courage, resilience, and hope, and a very inspiring story of women empowering women.
Absolutely. So Stephanie's topic today is called Making Real and Lasting Change. Stephanie is the CEO and founder of 7 Women. So without further ado, let's learn a little bit more about Stephanie through her introductory video.
Outside, all people are teach me. In the beginning time, my life is going lost.
I started my travel company 7 years ago and bringing groups from Australia to Nepal to experience the magic that Nepal offers.
When women are came here, they like the caterpillar. In the beginning time, I'm also like a caterpillar. Now I am a butterfly.
There's something very special about Nepal. It brings people back to why we're here and the meaning of life. I believe travel is a huge force for good, and we've tapped into that with 7 Women. I've always wanted to make a difference for as long as I can remember, from a very young age, and I remember thinking that to be able to make a difference I have to experience as much as possible.
There's really good stuff and great opportunities to share with other human beings this whole life experience that we all travel on.
We can encourage women to reach their human potential and step out of the darkness.
So let's zoom Stephanie in all the way from Melbourne, Australia. Come and join us, Stephanie.
Hello, Stephanie.
There we are. Lovely to see you. I literally have goosebumps. That film was so beautifully done. Congratulations. What a lovely story. And just, I love the way it started about metamorphosis from caterpillars to butterflies. Very uplifting. So Stephanie, we love to go into the story behind the story. So maybe I could ask you to tell us a little bit about that. But first, we would like to offer you the Together Talk soapbox. If you would take it away and tell us a little bit about your soapbox and why you're here to talk to us today.
Thanks so much for having me, and it's so exciting to be part of the Together Talks. And I think, Nikki, what you just said captures 7 Women and the broader vision of 7 Women, which is for us as humans to reach our full potential and remember how we've been given these incredible gifts and to step into our gifts in the span of our lifetimes. And for the 7 Women, if for those of you who have been to the centre in Kathmandu, Nepal, have seen the banner of the metamorphosis, the caterpillar to the butterfly, to the cocoon, to the butterfly, to the group of butterflies. And that was actually a symbol used by the women that came to the centre, that have, many of the women, in fact, that have come to the centre to share their journey of coming as a caterpillar and, in the cocoon, learning new skills, and then as a butterfly, when they've started to become financially free and experience that financial freedom and social empowerment as well, and then to be able to share it with others in a group of butterflies on the banner. So I suppose 7 Women began with me meeting 7 women with disabilities that lived in a tin shed in the back streets of Kathmandu, Nepal, when I was 22. But it's evolved into much more now, which is, yes, the topic of the talk today is creating real and lasting change, but really it's about acknowledging and seeing each other's potential and really drawing out that human potential.
All right. Super.
Brilliant.
Let's get going.
Thanks, Stephanie. So first question really is just, how did your trip to Nepal begin? What was it that took you there? And how did you end up in Nepal in the first place?
Thanks, Luke. I was a very curious young person, as I see many young people are today, and I really felt that to really find what I was going to be doing in future. My friends at high school seemed to all know what they wanted to do at university and what they were going to become. And I remember thinking to myself, like, how do you know if you've had no experience? Like, how do people know what they're going to become? So I made it my mission to experience as much as I could, and I knew that I wanted to make a difference. So I was volunteering for all sorts of organisations and did a few very impactful trips in Aboriginal communities here in Australia, one with a university professor and the other one with the Red Cross Remote Communities Holiday Program. And the thing that stuck with me from those experiences was the connection that the Indigenous people had to the land and to themselves. And it was very profound, and it kind of stuck with me. And I thought that would have to be the best aim for me in my life, to always remain connected to nature and connected to that life force that we all carry inside of us. So that kind of I took that with me to Nepal on this experience that was suggested to me by a family friend, and I jumped at it. I thought that would be amazing. And I had this almost nervous feeling in my stomach before the trip to Nepal, because I was going for 3 months with 30 people that I didn't know, to a country that I knew hardly anything about. But I felt like it was going to be life-changing, and a friend of mine gave me a little journal to write in. So I took my little journal, and we basically camped in communities for 3 months, and it was a very profound experience again on me. I was very moved by the generosity of the people, the spirit of generosity in Nepal, and very kind of touched by the poverty, but the hospitality, the in-your-face poverty that I'd never experienced before. So kind of leading to the beginning of 7 Women, I went back there as a co-leader for groups of architects to build things that they had designed for the last 6 months, at their universities and in their organisations, and come across and build those in the communities. And in that role as a leader of this group, a co-leader, I became very, very curious about how do we create real and lasting change as foreigners in a foreign place. So that experience led me to visit many different organisations. When we arrived back to Kathmandu, I had a few weeks to stay on, and really understood that the empowerment model was way, way, way more effective than the welfare handout model that created more dependency and often led to corruption. So I was very grateful to kind of have that experience, and it was on one of the last days in Nepal that I was, being my curious self, wanting to meet more of the locals and, explore all the back streets in Kathmandu, walking down one of the tiny dusty alleyways, and saw a woman ahead of me who was struggling to carry these 2 heavy bags, and I was walking behind her and saw her turn into this tin shed, and poked my head around too and saw that there were 6 other women who were sitting on this freezing cold concrete making these ancient, like the candles out of ancient looking candle makers, stainless steel candle makers. So they had this big pot of wax over a fire that was lit, and they were pouring the wax into these candle makers with the wicks. So when I kind of inquired as to what they were doing, luckily one of them spoke broken English. Her name was Sangita, and she said that they were making these candles to sell in the local market, but because they were all physically disabled, that nobody was buying their products, because there's a belief in Nepal that's widely held that if you're disabled in this life, you were evil in a past life. So that kind of shocked me, and as it would for anybody. And I just wanted to know what I could do to kind of help these women.
So you mentioned something really interesting, Stephanie, about obviously being very aware that you were a foreigner in a country that you're not from. You didn't know an awful lot about, and I think it's very important what you touched on as well, because I think especially today there's a lot of image around world travel. There's a lot of image around going to a different country. There's a lot of sensitive territory around sort of voluntourism, cultural appropriation. But you said that you learned some of these lessons quite early on about how to avoid that and how to actually focus on the empowerment of the communities that you're with. So what kind of advice would you give to people, particularly young people who would be going to another country, seeing a need, wanting to do something, but being very cautious not to, as you say, develop a model that's a handout, but instead an equal hand up?
That's such an interesting question, and it's something that fascinated me, over the last 16 years, because it's a continuous learning journey. Every time I go to Nepal, I learn so much more, and you see different examples again of different ways of people helping and what that leads to. And as the founder of a tour company as well, Hands On Development, and I've brought quite a few Rotary groups across, which has been incredible. But I also brought high school students and university students. And how I would answer that question is, yes, it is sensitive territory, but it was almost a hindrance to these beautiful young university students that came on the tour that had so much reading and knowledge around don't do this, do this, don't do this, that they were almost kind of stifled and stunted in feeling like they could do anything. So, I was kind of grateful that I had a bit of experience when I started Seven Women, but I hadn't had too much of that, programming in my brain, so that I could go, oh, what can we do? And let's do this, that I didn't bring too much, to it. So how I would kind of answer that is, I think, my philosophy and understanding and lived experience is, we as humans are put in different places in divine timing, with the right people. If you feel an inspired action to take action in a situation, take the action. And I think that's what was the sad thing about sometimes on these tours with these young kids that have been learning too much at university about what, this, that and the other, that it's they're kind of too much in their heads rather than in their hearts, and they're kind of blocked off from those inspired actions.
Brilliant. Thanks. Over to you, Nikki.
That's a really interesting answer, Stephanie, too. Good question, good answer. So moving into that, Stephanie, I've had the pleasure of hearing you talk and meeting you a couple of times, and I know you don't mind getting a little humble. So I'm going to ask you to share some of the mistakes that you first endeavored, or met with in your need to help, and the use of your $200 and what your first thoughts are, because I think it's really helpful to others to learn from others' mistakes. So would you be able to share some of those with us?
Sure. Yeah. And I just might mention, Rotary has been a fantastic supporter that's kind of come in and woven in and out of the journey over the last 16 years. But the very first supporter when I met the Seven Women in the Tin Shed, and we needed basically there was an opportunity through the United Nations Development Program to receive training, and that's what we did with the $200 paid for the training. But in order to be able to access the training, we needed $1,000 worth of materials so the women could work with it. And I was kind of thinking, where on earth am I going to get $1,000 from? I'd never done this before. And for some reason, the local Rotary Club in Ivanhoe popped into my mind, and I sent them an email. I was connected with one of them and said, I just thought, what the hell, I'll just, you know, it was the only option I could think of. So I sent them an email saying, got this opportunity, it's kind of urgent, I kind of need the money by tomorrow or the next day at the latest. And they sent an email back the next morning saying, we've had a quick, you know, chat with each other and we're going to put the money into your account tomorrow. So because of that support, we were able to actually kickstart 7 Women and receive that first training with the first $200 that I had to contribute to the project. So and so yeah, there were lots of challenges to come that I had not foreseen, which I'm glad that I hadn't thought of, because I probably would never have begun. And
Yeah.
I think the most interesting one to share would be, I started raising money once the women started making products in the training, and I was, you know, I had my own ideas for what we'd do with that money. For me, seeing the women living in such squalor, you know, on the freezing cold concrete on dusty mattresses was logically, you know, I really wanted to be able to sell the products and help them get a proper bed, proper blanket, a proper bathroom that they could wash themselves in. So, you know, I just thought, how can anyone feel good about themselves if they're living in these conditions? When I went back to Nepal, and I think I only had about $1,500 or something like that from selling the products. I went back 6 months later. We were discussing what to do with that money, and the women said that the first thing that they wanted was a fence around the tiny dwelling that they were living in, because across the road was an alcohol shop where there was undesirables that were hanging around at night time and things, and they felt unsafe. So that was really interesting for me, because I just kind of thought, wow, it's so important. I'm so glad that I asked them, because for me it was a no-brainer, you know, bedding and blankets so they would be warm, but actually it was safety. So reminds me of the Maslow hierarchy of needs. But yeah, so basically really to build that trust and connection with the people that you're working with, so they feel safe enough to tell you actually what they want. And that's really held us in good stead, because the women have trusted me, thankfully, since the beginning, and we were able to really work as a team with the next step and what's the next step and what's the next step. So many more challenges to share, but I'll leave it at that, because, you know, working in a country like Nepal and not having the language initially and the language barriers and that sort of thing, but also the women's skill level was so basic in the beginning that when I was, you know, I really wanted to be able to create a market back here for the products, and I actually realized the magnitude of the issue. I thought it was just the 7 women in the beginning that I wanted to help, and that I would help them kind of get the basics so that they could have a bit of a launch pad. But then we had more and more women coming every day with these horrific stories that were begging for an opportunity to earn money and you know, get their lives on track. So that meant that I really had to actually, you know, create the market here and sell more products and raise more money. And I also, because of my experiences visiting the different organisations, really wanted to not rely on donations. I wanted the women to understand from the very beginning what they needed to do to earn that money, also to honour their abilities, you know, because all I saw was potential in each of them, that they had their hands, they had their brains, they could create things. And I wanted to really honour their abilities to be able to create, you know, for that income, and understand as the business grew what output they would need to do to make it a sustainable enterprise. So yeah, it was very slow. You know, it took about 4 or 5 years for the manufacturing side of things to actually take off. And I remember thinking to myself, what the hell do I think I'm doing? Like, what is going on? Yeah, am I mad? Because at some stages it was kind of like, this is just ridiculous. Like, I'm being tested again and again with the cargo loads that were coming of, you know, wet felt at one stage, because the women thought it would be better to get them to me when I asked for them rather than to have them dry, and for to delay it, you know, another week while they dried. So you can imagine the smell of wet wool that's, you know, getting moldy on the way from Nepal to Australia. So lots and lots of challenges in the beginning.
So it's definitely, the more you got into it, the more you realized how enormous the challenge was. How did you avoid getting overwhelmed at that point? You know, if this is all about making real and lasting change and encouraging others to keep going, right? And the tenacity, what was it that supported you of sort of saying, okay, yes, I'm questioning why me, what am I doing? But what was the step you took that enabled you to keep going and build on that?
I suppose I've always trusted that, you know, I've trusted that I met the women for a reason, and I was excited. It lit me up, and it lit me up that I was able to be having an impact, and I was surrounding myself with incredible humans here, volunteers that were full of that generosity of spirit that wanted to help as well. So it was that you know, that feeling of, I'm sure, you know, so many Rotarians have had that feeling where you're involved in a project and you're getting all these ideas, and we could do this and we could do this, and you're working together as a team. And I always, you know, in the most challenging moments, I always kept perspective and kept the women's challenges in mind. And, you know, that kind of dwarfed my challenges. Like, okay, well, we're having this challenge, but it's nothing compared to the women that I've come to know in Nepal and what they're dealing with. So if we can just get over this, you know, it's I always held the future vision in mind, that we were going to help these women get on their own 2 feet, and that would have a ripple effect.
Compelling vision. That's always a way to make sure you can keep going forward. That sounds fantastic. Over to you, Luke.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, so Stephanie, you mentioned the centre, the visitor centre that you bring people over and they can experience, and it's 7,000 people have been, over 7,000 people have now been to that centre. So can you just tell us a little bit more about that, the experience that the visitors get, and why that centre is so important?
Sure. So our headquarters in Kathmandu is a bit of an ecosystem of social enterprises. So we've got the manufacturing business. After about 6 years, when that was really up and running and we're wholesaling to Australian outlets and European outlets, we thought, well, not all the women want to knit or make products, you know, so we wanted to be able to diversify the skills that we were offering as more and more women came into the fold. So we thought, why don't we do cooking classes and provide you know, transformative experiences for tourists as well, so we could inspire tourists when they felt like they were making an impact. We could grow 7 women, and we could support the women in learning English as they interacted with the tourists, and, you know, so many benefits to that. So we started with piloting, almost using my tour groups that came over as guinea pigs, and testing out, you know, cooking classes and what they liked, what they thought we could shorten it, you know. So and then we took it to the big tour companies in Nepal, the major tour companies, and said, would you like to bring your groups to do these cooking classes? And I knew that we had an advantage in the market, if we want to talk in business terms, because there's not a lot for tourists that want to make a difference in Nepal in that way, to do it as a, you know, as an experience. So that worked really well, because we had the manufacturing business, we had a shop at the headquarters. We have a shop. It's just not getting visited as much as it used to, because of the last 12 months. But we've got the fair trade products. We had the cooking school at the back of the headquarters, and now we've got a guest house. So that they worked as a beautiful little ecosystem where people could come and stay in the guest house and do the cooking class, or do the cooking class and buy the products, or buy the products and see what else is on offer. And yeah, but it's all, but the most incredible thing for me and rewarding thing for me as being someone part of creating this was bringing people over as part of the tours, and something very magical kind of happened, and it was to do with seeing the potential in each other. So the people that came over on the tours saw the almost like the I want to say that kind of the God part, or that incredible potential in the women. And the women saw the incredible potential in the Westerners, because they just think Westerners are amazing, and not all Westerners are. But you know, like because each of the parties were seeing the best in each other, the best was being drawn out. And that's where the magic happens. You know, that's where we can step up as humans. And ideally, everyone would see that in themselves, because we all have that. But it helps sometimes when another draws it out of you. So it was just, you know, incredible and so rewarding. Everyone, you know, cried when they left Nepal at the end, because it was almost like a part of them had been explored. They were out of their comfort zone. They were in their senses, in the present moment, with all the colours, sights, smells, sounds. So that's why I absolutely loved doing the tours. And that's why I think it was a very transformative experience for people to come and visit the headquarters and enterprises, not just to learn a new recipe, but to actually have that connection with the women and have the tour of the enterprises and learn, but also, just also that extra added magic that happened all the time.
You know, so you learned the business along the way. So often people who have a passion haven't got the business skills. So clearly you learned along the way. But at some point, Stephanie, I know you shared that you felt the need to go back to school, and you had an opportunity, I understand, to have a Rotary Peace Scholarship. And now not everyone who listens to Together Talks is a Rotarian, but I think this is a fantastic program for both Rotarians and for non-Rotarians to understand about the opportunity it presents. So could you tell us a little bit about your experience as a recipient on that front, and how that played into the progress that you've made over the years?
Sure. So I actually heard about the Rotary Peace Fellowships at a district conference, and I'd been invited by a Rotarian to the Moonee Valley Racecourse in Melbourne here, where the district conference was being held. And she invited me, she asked if I wanted to have a stall to sell the Seven Women products. So I had a stall for the first time at a Rotary conference, and I'd been doing markets every weekend, you know, wake up at 5 a.m. and some markets were good, other markets you'd sell, you know, $100 and you were there all day and you were thinking, oh my God, I'd rather, you know, I would have rather have a sleep in this morning. But that, I just wanted to kind of share that experience, because I could not believe the support that I received at that district conference. I was not prepared for it, and I was blown away. Like, for the first time, people were actually interested in the story behind the products and you know, how the organisation started. And I think we sold about $3,000 worth of products, you know, in the break, in the lunch break, where everyone came out, and I was just kind of like blown away, going, oh my goodness, I want to learn more about this organisation. These are amazing people that just want to make a difference. And it was, you know, as life would have it, I had a session the week before with a mentor that I used to catch up with once a month, called Nick Fairfax. I used to fly to Sydney, and he put me onto a friend that worked for UNICEF, and his mate said to me, look, if you're wanting to get a master's, I would get it sooner rather than later. And yeah, that kind of stuck with me, and I had it on my mind. And as I was kind of selling the Seven Women products at the district conference, you know, I was chatting to the woman on the stall next to me, and it happened to be the Peace Fellowship stall, where she was telling me all about Peace Fellowships. And I just thought, oh my goodness, this is amazing. So I was, you know, looking at the brochure, and I just thought, oh my God, what an opportunity to go away, do the masters somewhere else, in these top universities, you know, around the world, and meet people from all around the world as you're studying, you know, peace and conflict research. So I applied, and it was a very you know, lengthy process. So I think there was an interview first with the local Rotary Club that sponsored you, and there's an amazing man who some of you might know, Bob Fells, who's, I think he's quite well known with the Peace Fellowships, who really backed me and almost kind of held my hand and talked me through the process and all that sort of thing, and all about got me even more excited. And so I had you know, an interview at the club level with about 6 people from the club, and that was full on. And then, you know, full on interview, and I was even more excited about the opportunity, and then the district level, and then it was the international level. And I think that took about 6 to 9 months. And I was on one of the last days in Nepal on one of the tours when I got the confirmation that I'd been accepted to Uppsala University in Sweden.
Mhm.
And yeah, I had the same same feeling in my stomach, you know, before the trip to Nepal, like this, I know this is going to be life-changing, this experience. So it was quite amazing. It was, you know, Uppsala, a beautiful old town that has stunning, you know, town hall and all that sort of thing, and just stunning buildings that we were learning in. It was like out of a movie. And I remember the first guest speaker that we had in the main town hall was Kofi Annan. And I was just thinking,
Wow.
geez, I thought this was going to be amazing. But Bob, you didn't tell me that we were going to have speakers like Kofi Annan. That's phenomenal. And there were amazing speakers, you know, during the 2 years. So yeah, I met some incredible people over there, and just learning subjects such as, you know, how rebel movements form, and leadership in conflict resolution and mediation and things like that were very, very interesting topics.
Yeah. And so what was your thesis on specifically, Stephanie?
So the thesis was, because I was thick in the Nepal work at the time, I was really curious to know whether it was economic empowerment or social empowerment that made the difference to women at the grassroots level that were living in a patriarchal society and very, you know, oppressed in that society. So that was really interesting. I did, you know, the focus groups and interviews, and realised that it was really both of them together, which kind of confirmed my lived experience with 7 women. But I was just really interested to kind of gather more data on that. So yeah, it was super interesting, because yes, it's the earning of money that allows them to be independent, because without, you know, this is why we started the numeracy and literacy programs in the 8 remote villages that we work in, because I realized things that as a West, you know, as someone who has grown up in a country like Australia, your mind doesn't even go there, but without knowing how, you know, to count, you get ripped off in the local market, you can't buy food, you know, you don't have that independence. So there's a real reliance on your other half for that. So that, yeah, that was really interesting. And I was very, very motivated after that master's to think. What I realized was, because going into that, I was wondering whether I would be more useful maybe in policy making. I wanted to kind of explore that as an option. But what I realized was the power of one, you know, the power of the individual in taking those inspired ideas that come to us and taking action and leading, you know, and gathering others on that mission, which is basically what Rotary does within little clubs and then extend it out. So that was the takeaway from the masters, and it allowed me to evolve 7 women in a way that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't have done that masters.
And so now the masters is complete, and you've written 2 books. Tell us a little bit more about those books and the experience of that, and then also what is next. What's happening next?
Yeah. That's amazing that you said 2 books, Luke, because I've been really feeling like another book is ready to be written, but I've only written 1. So
Okay.
Here's the foresight. So it was 1 book, from the tin shed to the United Nations, right? That was all the 1 book.
Yes, yeah. So when I came back from the masters, an amazing thing happened. We were nominated by a few Rotary members, actually in the Rotary Club of Melbourne, to receive an award at the United Nations called the Responsible Business Award. So that we were awarded that. So I got to fly to the United Nations, and with my mum, who has always wanted to go to New York. It was like perfect. And such a gift that I was able to give her, and share the 7 women's story in front of, you know, I think it was about 1,000 UN workers and Rotarians, and you know, this incredible audience of people. So I got back from that experience super pumped, super motivated, and thought, I really want to be able to share this story for others that want to make a difference and want to take action, but might just be wondering, what are the first steps? Like, how do I do it? And, you know, really kind of give people permission or encourage them to just take the first step. You don't need to see the whole vision, you know, and sometimes it's not useful to see the whole vision or have a 5-year business plan. Just take the first inspired action that comes to you. If you're passionate about this topic, you know, how can you get involved? Take the first little step. So that was called From a Tin Shed to the United Nations, how every one of us can make a difference. And I set a deadline for myself to write that in 3 weeks before a big Rotary district conference, and I did it. At the very second, we got them printed, and we've sold over 7,000 copies now. So it's been, you know, amazing to have them after all my talks, to just have on a stand, and to also have the opportunity to interact with people after the keynote presentations.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, congratulations. That's fantastic. And I know we started off today saying this was a story about women empowering women, but I am sure you have empowered and inspired many men along the way, as well as all of the women that you've worked with in Nepal. Let me just ask you this, on reflecting on all of that time that you've been giving to others, what has this experience given to you? What are your takeaways? How has it impacted your life?
Yeah, so much. I think, you know, we receive so much in giving and in what we do. And I've had the absolute honour to be surrounded by incredible humans that have been drawn to the vision and to the cause. And I have been able to kind of live, I think, into my potential and learn so much along the way. I've never studied business management or anything like that, but I know a lot about it because of, you know, winging it the whole way. And also just the ability to inspire others, I think, into action. And, you know, I think that's really important, that we see ourselves as being able to take action in the direction of our dreams and in the direction that inspires us, because I think the world needs more creativity and more people, you know, having these ideas and acting on them in weird and wonderful ways, and bringing others along for the journey. And I think Rotary is a fantastic kind of incubator for that, for those ideas, because you've automatically got a tribe of people that you can share the idea with and say, who wants to be involved in getting this up and running? So, and, you know, all the district grants and all things like that, it's an incredible structure to be able to support people to make a difference. So so many gifts I've been given along the way. And, you know, I think life really supports you when you follow your dreams and you follow your highest excitement. One of my favorite quotes is, follow your highest excitement with no expectation of the outcome. And that's how I basically have lived my life. And it's taken me to extraordinary places. Never did I imagine that helping 7 women in a tin shed would have me traveling, you know, constantly speaking in different countries about the model that we've created. Like, that has been divinely guided, and I really am grateful for all of that, because I feel like I'm on this mission, and that I trust in what life is putting before me, and I kind of go with it if it feels right. I always kind of take action depending on my intuition and my gut feeling, and it's led me to great places and meeting great people. So I'd like to inspire more of that way of living, and to ignite the passion in others, hopefully, you know, from my story, to do what excites them, because it's the energy that comes from us when we are doing that is going to ultimately change the world, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. And perfect lead in for our close now, Stephanie. So unfortunately we're out of time, so we do have to say goodbye. But before we let you go, we would love just to hear from you your final 3 key takeaways that you'd love to leave us with today.
Yeah, so your calls to action, like you said, inspiring action.
Yeah. So I think I think the call to action would be for people to draw the potential out in others, whether it's the person at the petrol station when you fill up your car with petrol, whether it's the supermarket. Like, say something nice that is truthful, obviously, but to everybody that you meet, because that is planting little seeds that you don't know what that's going to do for that person. So you know, that's how we can make the ultimate difference. And I think Rotarians are actually really good at doing that from my experience. But we can all do it more, you know, seeing the potential in others and drawing that out as much as we can. And that will come back to us tenfold. So the second one would be, just explore the areas that most excite you and take action in that direction, because that does free up our energy, and that is, you know, energy is everything. That's my belief and my experience. When we're happy, our lives start to kind of work and flow for us. So if you're not in a job or in an environment or in a circle of friends that is allowing you to explore that potential, make a few changes, because it is absolutely critical, especially the time is now for that. And the third one would be I think just gratitude and being grateful for everything that you have brings more of it into our lives. And so everyone has things to be grateful for. And, you know, if you have to do it every night before you go to sleep, do it, because you will see that raise your vibration and frequency, and you'll see the ripple effect that has on others. So they would be my three.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Stephanie. It's been a joy to spend time with you tonight. Sorry to have to say goodbye. So we'll wish you all the very best on a continued path. You've got so much more ahead of you. So all the best going forward. And
good luck with the second book.
Yes.
Thank you.
Just do it.
Thanks so much, Stephanie.
Thank you. Stephanie certainly has shown us that everybody can help make a difference, especially in a part of the world where there's so much injustice for women. You've been a great deal of many thought-provoking and humbling humbling sharing of your mistakes, so that you can inspire others and how they can truly go out there and make a difference. So thank you.
Yeah, a really interesting talk, and what a brilliant journey from recognizing a struggle in a country that Stephanie wasn't even from, to going to an organization that supports so many women. So a real brilliant talk. So thank you so much again for that. So next time on Together Talks, we're very delighted to welcome Emily Stevenson, who is a plastics warrior, who is turning the tide on ocean pollution with her organization Beach Guardian. Emily is a Point of Light Award recipient from the British Prime Minister and a Young Citizen Award holder from Rotary International in Great Britain and Ireland. Given the ever-growing need to support the environment and the importance of tackling climate change, Emily's talk couldn't come at a better time, and we hope to see you all there.
How incredible the messaging about how much you can achieve such early stage in your life and keep going after that. What a great scenario of stories. So anyway, let's end by thanking you, our audience, for being with us tonight and asking great questions. We would like to remind you all that tonight's broadcast, along with all of the series 1, 2, and 3, and now 4 of Together Talks, are available on demand on the Rotary Great Britain and Ireland YouTube channel, where we'd like to invite you to like, subscribe, and share. So until May 25th then, it's good night from me.
And good night from me. Bye.
Bye.